Hello and welcome to the show. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And it's so amazing. I had an exact dream of what just happened, except it was a little different. I'll just explain what happened first. KGRA is down. I have absolutely no idea why. They're working on it and may come through a little bit later. And if they do, then we'll take calls that way. Otherwise, the new number to call will be, don't call yet though, is 603-967-4030. The deal was with the dream, and I know you can't help what you dream. It was kind of bizarre. But it happened that I was getting ready to do this show, and my son was with me, and I was in the house that I grew up in, and I have no idea why I was there. And there was a bunch of other people involved. So we got ready to go live, and KGRA was down just like it really was. It really is. And so I just got frustrated. I said, well, I guess we can't do the show. And I walked away, and my son said, oh, yeah, that's too bad, and all this stuff. And all of a sudden I said, you know what? I'm going to do this show Skype, which I'm doing right now. And so I ran back to the sit down at the computer, and just the keyboard was there, but the screen was gone. So I said to my son, I said, where's the screen? What did you do with the screen? And he says, I don't need that. I don't need the screen. I can just move around. I know how to move around with this computer. I don't need the screen. So I said, no, I need the screen to take calls on Skype. So he hands me this black board, and I'm trying to put the board on top of the keyboard. I mean, I'm telling you, it was a strange dream, but some of that came true, which is really amazing. And, it's St. Patrick's Day, and I do appreciate you joining me. Hopefully we'll get these calls through Skype and everything will work okay, or KGRA radio will come back online. And this show is about UFOs, but I can't help but talk about the current situation because, back when I scheduled this show a month and a half, 2 months ago, I had no idea that the world was going to turn on its head within this last week. And it's amazing. And, I feel for a lot of people out there. And I, too, I've been a bit nervous about things. And we're talking about the COVID-19, the coronavirus. So the calls tonight, I hope, will be about UFOs. But I understand if someone wants to, talk a little bit about that, because it is pretty stressful. On a lighter side, I got to say some strange things have happened, and that is, the things that are getting wiped out at supermarkets. One thing I don't understand is, and I heard about it, and I said it can't be true, and that's toilet paper is completely wiped out, and even up in this picture on YouTube, you can see it. It's way up in Maine. I went to a store, and I just have to tell this story because it's kind of comical. I went and I saw this aisle, and I'm down at the end of it. I took a picture, and there's this guy over like an aisle, just about like an aisle over, like right at the end, and he has these half-rimmed glasses on, and he's looking down at coupons. And he's looking back at the shelf. I think it was pharmaceutical or something like that. And he keeps looking back and forth at his coupons and the shelf. Never raised his eyes above the coupons in the shelf, and just said, "Psst, hey, buddy." So I said, you can't make this stuff up. So I go, yeah, what's up? He goes, you looking for toilet paper? And I said, why? You got some for sale? And he said, no, but, if you go over to the next store next door, they have them there. And they're giving 2 rolls per customer. I was like, wow. Okay. So anyway, we can survive without toilet paper. We have done it before. We can do it. We can certainly do it again. And so when I say you can survive without it, we had other ways of doing things in the past. So also, people are very concerned, and I do understand. And, there's a lot of things that are not funny at all about this current situation. And I think that, if we're just all careful, we can get through this. I've seen some great acts of kindness from people lately. And I think that we do always seem to pull together when tragedy happens. And, all I can say is, I know the economy is on everyone's mind. I'm supposed to be doing a big appraisal down in Boston next week. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. We just don't know. We just have to take these things a day at a time and move ahead and, be kind to each other. That's the best advice that I can give. And I know no one's asking for my 2 cents, but we're just in a time where we need to be kind to each other and we need to be careful. And we need to learn to ask for help if we need it. But anyway, I'm ready to take calls. Again, I will let you know if we go on live and we have the call screener. But for right now, it's going to be you, me, and Skype. And that number is 603-967-4030. And feel free to call in. I'm only going to be able to take one call at a time through Skype. So please feel free to call in now. And you can talk about basically anything you want to. But if you want to talk about a UFO sighting you had, if you want to talk about, current events, thoughts about anything, that line is open now. And so, again, 603-967-4030. And the line is wide open for you. And let me just see if we have any updates over at the radio station. And waiting for your call. All right, we've got someone here. Hello, I'm taking the calls live, so you're on the air right now. Your name and where you're calling from?
Hello, my name is Jonathan. I'm calling from outside Washington, D.C. in Virginia.
Oh, hi, Dennis. Thank you for calling. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. So how are you hanging in there? Do you have something you want to talk about as far as a sighting, or the floor is yours, so to speak?
Okay. Well, I don't have a specific sighting, but I've been fascinated with the Nimitz encounters, and I've, watched everything I can get my hands on related to that. And I know I've listened to your guest last week talk about that some, and I was curious if you had any theories on why that object chose to go to the exact site where the F-18 Hornets were. Do you remember what I'm talking about with
yes.
the Nimitz encounters?
Oh, yeah.
I believe that object was attempting to communicate something by going there. But my question is, what is sort of the leading theory on how they could have picked that location, since the training location was the secret?
Yeah, absolutely no idea. And that's where I wouldn't call it conspiracy, but, people are speculating that this, had to do with the Air Force. There is some speculation out there, and I'm not saying I agree with it, especially if you listened to the show last week and you heard about the physics of these objects. It's just, I can't understand how we could possibly have any vehicle that would do what it would do, but the speculation is that the Air Force knew where this site was, and that's why it went there in particular. I think if that's not the case, we have a number of people calling in, so just hang in there. Again, I have to do this Skype one person at a time, so as soon as we're done with this call, I'll ask for the next one. So I think that it's all, at this point, just speculation. And now PJ Hughes is going to be on this show, I think in sometime in April, and he was one of the witnesses. I think he was on the Princeton, but I'm not sure. But anyway, he will be on, and he is saying that he's about 60-40 that it was technology. So I'm not sure. I really don't know what to say about that. But is that basically it? I mean, I can't really answer that question, unfortunately, because I really don't know, at this point.
Right. No, and I understand we're all speculating on that
Yeah.
incident to begin with, but I thank you for taking the time to answer my question, and thank you for your show.
You bet. Okay. All right. You take care. Thank you. All right. So I just wanted Oops, I just missed that call. I've had trouble with Skype too. I forgot. I didn't even want to think about that. I had trouble picking up calls a few weeks ago. I wanted to share this with the YouTube watchers right now. My sister Heidi, she's a pretty talented artist, and she drew this for us tonight. And basically, the artwork says, when a cyclone of fear threatens to suck you in, remember your thoughts can take you anywhere. Why not choose someplace wonderful? And so my sister made that artwork. And check it out if you're on YouTube. And what I'm going to do for the people calling in is I did a random number. Let me take this call first. And I'm sorry, I cannot figure out how to turn off those the noises Skype makes. Hello and welcome to the show. What's your name?
Hi, this is Phil from the heart of Manistee National Forest in Michigan.
Well, how are you, Phil? Hang on just a second, Phil. I'm going to finish this thought. So anyway, if you look on YouTube right now, you will see an image of an artwork my sister made specifically for this show in our times right now. And I wanted to let the listener know that a caller that calls in, I pulled a random number thing, will get this free artwork in the mail, and I'd be glad to send it to you. And again, my sister made that for us tonight. I thought that was pretty special. Phil, my good friend Phil, how are you? Thanks for calling in.
Good evening. I've got one sighting that's personal and one story that is about a sighting that's related to my family. So I'll start with the
good
personal sighting that I had, and this was back in the 1990s when I was gainfully employed at the Abduction company in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I was actually talking to my friend on a phone, 2 in the afternoon, bright blue skies, sunny afternoon, and I had a north-facing window on the second floor. I look out and I see these things in the sky, and it's hard to describe other than it looked like dolphins, but they were at an extreme height, and they were like noodling around, kind of hopping up and down, or at least as much as you could tell something hopping up and down up in the sky. So I told my buddy that I got to hang up and go outside and get an unobstructed view. So I went out there and stood and watched these things for 15, 20 minutes. They really weren't making any progress. Like I was looking straight up, and they looked like they were thousands of feet high. But they looked like animals, but they were not birds. I mean, birds, because Kalamazoo's not too far from Lake Michigan, and there are a lot of gulls that you see, but these were not them. So I don't know what that was. I eventually filed it with Peter Davenport's website, but it was very, very strange. The other story is one I think I've told here once before, but it's a cool story worth telling once again, and it comes from my hometown in Paris, Illinois, which is in the middle of nowhere in central Illinois. And one afternoon, I was in my parents' room looking at some old books that they had, and I saw Frank Edwards' book, Stranger Than Science, I think was the name of it. And I read some of the stories in it, and then I came across one that said, UFOs stopped the baseball game. And I thought, So I read it, and it was Paris, Illinois, and I thought, wow, that's weird. So I read the whole story, and basically the story was that there was a Little League game going on out at the baseball field north of town, and what happened was these kids all started watching this bright orb flying around, and they all stopped and watched it. And then a few moments later, a bunch of jets came. They were scrambled from Chanute Air Force Base, which is up near Rantoul, and these jets proceeded to chase this thing around the sky, and hence the story, UFOs stopped the Little League game. But that's not the end of the story. That's kind of was the beginning of it for me, because you can read anything in a book and wonder. And I have read a lot of things in books that are all BS, as we all know. But there was a name in the book, and one of the guys they quoted was John Ball. And it just so happened that John Ball was my cross-country team's bus driver. So, and he was an old guy at this point. This happened in the late 50s, I believe. And I was reading this story in 1972. So I went up to John. I said, John, this is what it says in the book. Did this really happen? Because he was actually quoted in the story. And you'd have to know John Ball. He's a man of very few words. And he said, yep, that's exactly what happened. And he was the kind of guy that you didn't say much more to. So then I asked my brother if he'd ever heard. He's 10 years older than I am. He was actually playing in the game.
Oh, my God. Isn't that something?
The thing that freaked me out the most about all of this, not the story notwithstanding, but all the other stories in that book. There were some pretty weird stories in there, and I knew that particular one was absolutely true in all of its detail. So, anyway, that's all I got for you, Martin.
Oh,
good luck.
Yeah, that's an awesome one. I really and Phil, I got to say, we chat now and then, and I consider you a good friend, and I do appreciate you calling in.
It's my pleasure. Good luck with the rest of your show.
Yeah, we'll see. Just waiting to hear back from Race, but I don't see that that's going to be happening. Thanks again, Phil.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So let's see. I saw someone just trying to call. I'm just waiting for them to give a ring back. And let's see. All right. So that number is 603-967-4030. And the line is open right now. And I'm sorry I have to do this one at a time the way it is. Hello, caller. Your first name, please.
Hello, my name is Alejandro Rojas.
Oh, my God. Alejandro, how are you? I can't believe you called. All right.
Yeah. How wild.
How wild. Wow. Wow. Great to hear your voice.
Fortunately, someone had told me that they would like me to give them a call and talk for a minute, and so awesome. I did it.
Awesome. So how's everything going for you? You know that, I've mentioned to you, we have a lot of people wondering how you are and everything.
Yeah, well, I'm doing fairly well. I'm kind of, I say fairly because I am job hunting, to be honest, and that's been it's been taking a little longer than expected, but otherwise I am happy. And because I'm so focused on job hunting and the change that makes, everything else has kind of been a bit on hold, as everyone knows. So I haven't been keeping as up to speed on every little minutia when it regards the UFO field. However, if you follow my Twitter, which I've been most active on, you'll see I'm definitely out there keeping an eye on things and tweeting things that I think are interesting.
I know I do get your Twitter, and I notice it comes up. You must have I just don't know how to work these things, but it comes at like 6 a.m. my time. So you must have
funny.
You have a time thing or something probably. I'm not sure how that works.
No,
it just shows up. Yeah.
No, that's probably when I can't get to sleep, because there's a lot of times where I
Oh.
can't get to sleep, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll decide to look at Twitter and I'll tweet something. So that's probably what it is, because my 3 a.m. is your 6 a.m. So
Oh, yeah.
that's probably what it is.
I see. This. I was talking about the virus earlier and how it's basically affecting all of our lives and how careful we have to be. And I saw something today where Roswell still plans to go on, but I mean, there's a lot of time between now and July. I understand, and the same thing. The UFO Congress is in September. Who knows what's going to happen between now and then. I'm sure a lot of these venues are closing, or already the ones that are coming up soon. I know I've heard a couple of them are turned on its head.
My friend Jordan Pease, who puts together in Seattle the New Paradigm Conference, he postponed that. That was supposed to be going on like this weekend. And then we haven't heard from some of the others, but certainly UFO Congress was ready to post, actually, the first group of speakers and open some ticketing and stuff like that, but that's been postponed to keep an eye on things.
Yeah.
My personal take, because I have been keeping on top of all of this, is that I think summer, fall time or after that, I think will be okay. I think that it's not that this is all going to go away. It's that we're going to have it more contained, where new cases are going to be at a level that we can handle. So it's going to be a part of our lives, at least for the next year until a vaccine comes out. People are just going to be getting it at the rate of at least probably a few hundred a day. And the issue will be, people who die from it, of course. And I think it's interesting to look at. There are 30 to 60, about 1,000 people that die a year on flu regularly, which is quite a bit.
Yeah, and you don't hear about it.
Yeah, you don't hear about it because it's just something that happens. But even if something's twice or 3 times, but this is looking to be at least 5 to 6 times more deadly,
that's it,
and focused on the older people rather than the younger, you're still looking at a lot of people, and it means that us as people, even as younger people who are healthy, could be a carrier. So just visiting, without being careful, visiting our grandparents can be very dangerous to them.
Yeah.
And so we need to keep that in mind, especially.
That's right. That's right. I reached out to Ben Hansen out your way, more or less, and I've heard from different people, like in Australia. I've heard from Sam Maranto out in Illinois. He sent me a funny text. He said, "What's your take on head cheese?" And I said, "Head cheese?" I thought it was the strangest text, and then he wrote me back, because that's the only thing left in the grocery store. It's completely
that is so funny.
Wiped out.
I mean,
leave it to Sam to come up with something funny like that.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. But toilet paper to be hit first was so weird, and it kind of shows the power of social media, because that was kind of a thing in Australia, and the most of I can make of it, being interested in that sort of thing, is how these memes kind of happen. That's what it was. So Australia, started posting pictures of people having to run on toilet paper for unknown reasons.
You think that's how that happened?
Across the world.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I think that's a general consensus. And if you, looking up on try to see how it happened, that kind of started this run on groceries, which was just kind of unnecessary.
Well, as Philip Mantle, as the English calls them, toilet rolls. I asked how everything was going over there, and he said, "Well, you can't eat toilet rolls." So
what's kind of funny? Speaking of that, the different terminology. When you go I've been to Heathrow, and they call everything toilets, and toilets, seems a little bit more vulgar than restroom.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny that typically they're a little more, more dignified in the words they use, like using the word paper rolls instead of toilet paper.
Well, they had, in the 18th century, they had toilet tables that had nothing to do. It had to do with vanity, accessories, things like.
Really?
So it toiletries.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I guess it's all how you interpret things today. But
Yeah.
so are you? You're in out in the warm weather, beautiful weather
I
out
am.
there.
I'm in
Yeah.
the San Diego area right now. I was in Arizona the other day, and sure, I did cross state lines, but I am being careful with the social distancing and everything. But yeah, that's one thing. The weather is wonderful, and that's a great thing. At least for me, being out in nature can be very meditative. It's one of the reasons I like the San Diego area.
Oh, absolutely. It's
But
beautiful.
people can remember you can still go outside and hike and stuff. Don't
That's right.
really not wise to gather in crowds, especially with people that you don't normally
just
gather with, or especially anybody who's sick. But
just last week
go
I was
commune with nature.
Right. I was in Vermont. We're talking Wednesday through like Saturday, and there were crowded restaurants, crowded bars. Nobody would. Everything just seemed to happen so quickly. I don't know exactly what day it was, but I did I stayed at the Von Trapp family lodge, Sound of Music, beautiful lodge in Vermont. And the clerk there said, get back to your own state. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, it's possible, we've heard through the grapevine that there could be state to state quarantines. Who knows what's going to happen. That was probably just a rumor started. And I don't want to start it, make it go any further, but we just have no idea.
Because most of them are saying no. Even Andrew Cuomo is on today saying, all of these conspiracy theories and rumors are going around.
Yeah.
New York would be the first place where something like that would happen. And he's saying, no, I'm not considering that.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of it. That is not true at all. So fortunately, we're not at that point. But, another correspondent made a good point, is that the more they see people not doing what they should be and taking it upon themselves to do it, over time, the more, especially as numbers come in, which they already are, more people getting it, more people dying and getting sick, they may reconsider that if we're not doing it on our own, which a lot of people aren't doing, especially when you see all the spring breakers at Fort Lauderdale that are just like covering the beaches.
Amazing, isn't it? Amazing.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah. Yeah. We had the first call that called in asked a question, and I'll just pose it to you basically. Why do you think in the Nimitz case that the Tic Tac could have possibly known to go to the, I forget what it was called, the point of where they were.
The cap zone.
That's it. Yes. Your speculation. He was asking for my speculation, and I thought, well, might as well ask you what your speculation is on that one.
I mean, absolutely no clue. It could be something. It could not be something. If it's a coincidence, of course, it is a low probability sort of coincidence that would happen. But it's certainly possibly a coincidence. I mean, they were seeing the radar returns in a lot of areas. But if it's not a coincidence, which, I think in this case is not too far-fetched to speculate, because it would be so rare that it would do that. Who knows? I mean, it's really difficult to know. I think on the surface, if you were to look at that, it would be a message being sent that, which if this is, some foreign or, of course, very exotic foreign device, then it would be sending a message that not only can we penetrate your airspace, we can outmaneuver your jets, we also can access your encrypted information that is very tightly held, that nobody can get to. We have absolute full control over everything here, and that is a possibility. That could be the message that not only has been sent at the Nimitz, but has been sent for decades. I mean, Washington. I think that if, let's say, the case over Washington, D.C. in the 50s was similar in that it was a message from some exotic foreign, sort of group, then it would be the same message that we can fly around your capital, we can outmaneuver your jets, and there's nothing you can do about that. I think that if that is the message, what many groups like I'd say Chile, for example, which is a group of officials, military people who have come together to decide, well, what does this tell us? And what they're saying it's telling us is that at least they feel is that, okay, we're not here to hurt you, we're not here to harm you, but we want you to know we're keeping an eye, and we have, you can't touch us, that we have full control over everything that all your technologies, and our technologies are well beyond yours.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know. I mean, you got to really think out of the box in that we have absolutely no idea what motivations could be. I've heard some interesting speculation as to maybe this is to prompt us along, and for all along that, we've been given these displays of advanced technologies that push us to move towards that, and it pushes our technology along. Possible.
Wow.
All the way from just, hey, which are ideas like maybe Stan Friedman or others might have had, which is, we've got more power and we're keeping an eye on you, and, we're going to keep you contained, sort of thing. So who knows? I don't know. If this, of course, was a foreign adversary of a human, group of people, then, I think the message would be the same, that, hey, we've created something you can't touch.
Right.
But
right.
That would be, if that is the case, of course, the point that, some defense writers are making is that technology is beyond next technology. That means somebody has been able to create a technology that is beyond anything we can understand. Which is also a kind of a rare thing. So, yeah. I don't know. That's what I would speculate.
Well, that's great. I do appreciate that. Alejandro, thanks so much for the call.
All right.
Really
you.
Good to hear your voice.
Yeah, good to be here. Have a great show.
All right. Okay. All right. Take care.
Okay. See ya.
Bye. All right, everyone. So the line is open. It's 603-967-4030. And do give a call. It's wide open. I know some people were trying to call just a minute ago. And let's see. Next, just a couple of things on our website. We have a new blog, and it's called UFOs and the radio shows, or the radios. All right. We have a caller on now, and of course you can hear the Skype ringing. Caller, your first name, where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Jeremy from Oklahoma. I've been on before.
Well, hello, Jeremy.
I love your show. I wanted to tell you, Martin, I love your show, and I just
we're
kind of nervous.
We're keeping it real with technical problems.
Yeah, y'all doing good. I've watched every one of your shows.
Well, I just
wanted to see. I want to see your take on consciousness, because I've always been into the subject. I've had some missing time and stuff when I was a kid. And I've always been into the subject and the science, and I've been an atheist, but I've tried this meditating and this consciousness thing. I've been doing that remote viewing, that ESP trainer, and I've really seen a difference in my life. I've really noticed a big difference. And I used to have real bad luck, and I just want to know what your take and stuff was on it, what you thought about it.
I really don't have much input on that. I am open-minded about it. I will say that. But I personally, as a Joe, I was someone was interviewing me on a radio show, and they had me do, it was a kind of a funny bit. They said, okay, something's on my desk, and what is it? And I said, it looks like a turtle. And the guy said, yes, it's a hard hat. So that was my only experience with remote viewing. I have no idea. I have heard people say that, energy connects all of us and everything.
Yeah.
And, perhaps that explains a lot of things. I really don't know.
A double slit experiment. That's what got me. And I downloaded that remote viewer, and I tried it before I started meditating. And since I started meditating, that ESP trainer, it's just going up and up and up. I'm getting better and better. I'm getting up to 80% on it. I mean, it's really, I think there's something to it. I've always been an atheist and everything, into science.
Well,
But
a lot of
I wanted to see your
people.
take on it. I appreciate it.
I mean,
I appreciate what you're doing, buddy.
Hey, well, thanks a lot. All right, thanks for the call.
Okay, talk to it.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. All right, the line's open. Someone was just trying to call in. You're welcome to give it a try back. Let's see. And let me just put this up again. This is something my sister made for this show in particular. You can see it on YouTube. And I am going to give it to a random caller. I chose a random number through a random number machine. And let's see. All right. Hello, caller. What's your first name and where are you calling from?
This is Andy from Connecticut.
Oh, Andy. How are you?
Good, and yourself?
I am doing good. And
Good.
I remember you've been on. You helped me a great deal when things fell apart before.
That's right.
So I do appreciate the call.
No problem. Yeah, I just wanted to try to spit out, as quickly as I could, my own personal theory on kind of why we're being visited and what their motivations might be. And what I'm going to try to do real quick is just string together a couple of the big cases that you may have heard of and what people have said under hypnosis. And I don't know, I don't want to get into Christianity too much or belief in God, but I just feel like the one of the things that comes up in a lot of cases, like the Mojave incident, is that, and you're familiar with that case?
Which one is it? You seem to be fading in and out just a little bit.
Oh my God, sorry about that. The Mojave incident. The couple in the RV.
I'm not really sure I'm not really sure if I know that one in particular.
It's a big one. It was on Paranormal Witness. There's been a book written about it. This couple was alone camping in an RV in the desert, and they were abducted, and they experienced years of problems. And then under hypnosis, the hypnotist under regression hypnosis, they were able to reveal that these creatures that came and abducted them were told to come here, and they don't really have any opinion one way or the other about us. They were told to come and have a look and see what we're all about. And they came from the other side of the galaxy or far, far away. And they're just curious about us. And I think what makes us different is that we do have free will and we do have emotions and we're not rational and we are really hard to figure out. And some of these other creatures that come up again and again in all of these abduction cases, they don't seem to be subject to any of the problems that we've got. And I think they're curious about us. They don't understand us. And that makes us interesting. That's the basic, that's what it all boils down to.
Well, I think we don't understand us. There's so much to know about. I have a friend who has her husband. I forget. It could be Harvard or somewhere. I'm not really sure, but all he does is they study the brain, and he's been doing this for years and years and years, and they have made more ground on understanding how the brain works in the last, say, 10 years than they have through all time. And and they still, according to him, the last time I had a conversation with him a couple of years ago, they still know so little. There's just so much to know.
Right, a lot of strange things out there. They are trying to figure out mind and consciousness and the soul and what's what and how your personality works. A lot of crazy stuff. But it just seems to me like, no matter how the witness or the abductee describes the beings, and no matter where it took place in the world, it doesn't matter what year it was, there's this theme that just runs through all of it, that we're being studied. And it seems to me like if I bring it back around and wrap a little bit of Catholicism or Christianity into it, is that from what I was raised to understand is that God created us, or an intelligent designer created the universe and everything in it. And then it's hands off. He wants us to make our own decisions. He wants us to come to the right decision. He wants us to get it. He wants us to help each other and be good, and that he's not going to tell us what to do, because then it wouldn't be free will. And this whole, our life here on earth is just one big test, and that this isn't the end. And these creatures that come and look at us, they're not subject to the same set of rules that we're subject to. They can go to different dimensions.
Whoops, he's gone. Wow. I'm not sure what happened. I didn't touch a thing. So maybe his phone died. No, wait a minute. I don't know what happened. But anyway, he just popped away. So that line is open now. And maybe he'll call back. I'm not, excuse me, I'm not sure. But anyway, it's 603-967-4030. Andy, if you can hear me, I think we were close to the end. I'm not really sure, but it sounded like we were pretty much wrapping up. Anyway, I do appreciate the call, and sorry it cut out.
Wait. So that
hello? This
line
is
open now.
Hello.
Yes. Who do we have here?
Oh, hi, Martin.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I was on the air. This is
Yeah.
Garrett
Unfortunately,
calling
we're doing Skype, so you're hot on the air right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I ask my question or should I hang
Oh
up?
yeah. How are you? First name, please.
Garrett. I'm calling from Colombia, South America.
Is this the Garrett that I know?
This is the Garrett that told you about Stan Friedman really early in the morning, and
That's
we keep
right.
in touch. Good to hear from you.
Garrett, you have said some wonderful, kind things to me, and one of the things you said was that my show, I believe you said this to me, maybe I got it wrong, but that my show actually helped you, get through sometimes in a land where you're not used to being. And anyway, it's wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you, sir. That's 100% the truth. When I first arrived in Colombia, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know the language. I was just teaching English. So what did I do? Tuesday nights were my fun night. It wasn't Friday and Saturday. So I was tuning in. Anyway, I appreciate you for your consistency and your accessibility. I did want to get that in before my question because, and I know that all the other fans can relate to this, the consistency of your shows, the quality of your shows, and your accessibility as a host, whether it's a Skype message or a formerly Facebook message. So I just want to let you know from everyone that we appreciate those two benchmarks of your really great program.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. My question, I can take off the air.
Oh, that's fine. Okay. Let's hear it.
I just wanted to know how. Oh, sorry, sir. How do you feel about the state of disclosure as we are now, whether it's soft disclosure or more blatant? And the second part would be, what is your ideal scenario for disclosure? What would be the best case, scenario for you? Thanks so much. Have a good one, Martin, and keep listening, everybody.
All right, Garrett, you take care. Well, that is an interesting question, and I'd like to listen to other people's take on that particular subject, because I do agree to, I forget who it was that said that we are having a soft disclosure now. It does feel like that to me because of all the things that have happened ever since 2017. it's being taken much more seriously than before. So I think, we are gradually getting led into some type of disclosure. How I don't think it's going to be abrupt. I guess that's what would make it could happen that way if there was a mass sighting that could not be disputed in any type of way. And for instance, the old saying of landing on the White House lawn, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But something that was so spectacular just could not be ignored. And I hope that answers your question enough. Hello, caller. We have a couple of people calling right now. Your first name, where are you calling from?
My actual first name is Elliot. I'm calling from
Yes.
Mars. It sometimes feels like.
It sure sounds like a guy that also calls himself Lee.
Well, when I'm in the mood to use my middle name, yes, I am Elliot Lee Spiegel.
Yeah.
So there you go.
All right.
Hi there. How are you tonight?
Hey. So thanks for the call. I know I got a text from you saying, "Oh, what's going on?" When the show wasn't starting. So yeah, we made it. We're on Skype, but we still made it happen just exactly like the dream I had, which is so bizarre.
Yeah, I read about that, and hopefully, the president won't say anything like all radio talk shows cannot be broadcasting to more than 10 people. We don't want that to happen.
Someone wrote me today and said we need you now more than ever, and they asked me to do another, one more show a week if I could, which who knows? I might have the time. If I can't work out of state, who knows? But
that old saying that there is safety in numbers. Now we have to prove the opposite. There's safety in fewer numbers.
Yeah,
actually.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Lee, so you were on.
Yes, go ahead.
You were on your way. Didn't you tell me you were on your way to? Is it California somewhere? And everything got canceled.
On the weekend coming up, not this weekend, but the following weekend, out in wine country in California at the annual Sonoma International Film Festival, which normally screens about 90 films. It's a pretty big festival. And these folks were going to show 2 screenings of a little film called The Phenomenon, of which I'm one of the producers and writers, and the director is our good old friend James Fox. And they were kind enough to want to offer 2 screenings, and so I had already bought my ticket. I was going out there for a round-trip fare and go out there and to join James and our technical advisor, Jacques Vallée, and I believe Christopher Mellon was hopefully going to be there. The former United States Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. Yep. I think you've had him on your show, haven't you?
Yeah, I was one of the 2. I had him on first, and then got him hooked up with George Knapp, and George interviewed him as well. It was a great interview.
So we were all planning to be there. Our good friend David Marler, the man who made triangular UFOs a household name.
That's right.
David and I we were going to hook up in Phoenix and take a final flight out to Santa Rosa for the festival. And we were all looking forward to this. And a couple of days ago, the festival was canceled.
That's really too
yeah.
bad.
We were pretty disappointed because this was going to be the first major screening of the documentary that James has been working on for 6 years or more. I've been on it with him for 3 years now. And so there will be other screenings. We have plenty of time between now and when the movie actually hits its theatrical release in early September. So people will still have a chance to see the movie ahead of time. And we can't wait. We can't wait for everybody to check it out.
Do you think that it's possible that the theatrical release may be postponed as well? We have no idea with the way things are going at this point.
Well, you got to figure that's like 6 months away, right? 6 months away. Nobody knows what the state of accuracy or confusion or health is going to be in this country or anywhere else. This is such a new issue for all inhabitants of our planet right now to deal with. This is not just one country that's having an isolated case of a particular virus. We're all being affected, as we all know. I know I'm just preaching to the choir here, because we all know you can't get around it, you can't get away from it on the news, and so we all have to do whatever we can to just go along with the flow of accurate information coming from
Yes.
our leaders.
That's right.
Really,
And
because we don't know.
yeah, and what are things like, you're in New York? What are things like down that way?
So many closures of things.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is probably going on in just about every community, big or small, around the country. School closures, restaurant closures, all sporting events, all transportation is being closed or totally regulated and limited. Just a few days ago, the Governor Cuomo of New York issued a strong suggestion to the people of New York City, basically saying, I urge you all to do whatever you can to not get into a packed subway car. And, I thought, are you kidding, Mr. Governor? I mean, who are you talking to? Are you talking to the people who rely on those packed sardine cars for morning and afternoon rush hour to get to work, to get back home? How are you talking to those people? And if they're going to avoid it, that means they'll just have to stay home. So now there's that. Now we have so many businesses all around the country that are saying to their employees, if you can do your work from home, we'll be happy to pay you, to pay your expenses. We'll do whatever we can to help you in this time. And that's all that employers can and should do, is to support the people who work for them. It's a sad thing. I went to a Stop and Shop in our neighborhood out here in Long Island today, and the shelves really are bare. I mean, it's empty. It's amazing, and the sad part of it is there were also a lot of people, Martin, who were coming up to the cash registers with gigantic, packed, all the way overflowing items in their basket, almost as if they expected a hurricane or a tornado to ascend or descend upon our community. And I would suspect a lot of that attitude is happening all over the country, and yet you can't really blame people for wondering about that or being afraid of it, because again, there's a big question mark. We don't know the answers. So we're all in this together.
Yeah, I think I was trying to figure that out today, because I saw that today as well, and I think it's just that people are planning to isolate, which is a good idea, and stocking up as much as possible. People, they can get carried away, as you just mentioned about everything, being totally wiped out. That is scary. We all have to take this one day at a time, and I mentioned earlier, try to be kind to each other, and I'm seeing that. I'm seeing people being really, really nice, and if you're seeing that in New York, it's got to be everywhere.
Every time I've called any family lately or friends, the first thing I say to them when I get them on the phone is, do you have enough toilet paper?
I'm not coming over.
Really. I mean, we have to be real, and we can also keep a light head about this as well. We need humor. We need music and humor in this day and age.
That's right. And I was trying to get a little bit of humor, and so up on the screen on YouTube, I just put a little picture of organic toilet paper. It's basically someone put some leaves in a bag, and so I thought, as just for fun, I'm going to see what is the history of toilet paper. And it started in 6 AD in China. They were using actually paper, but it didn't become the roll paper as we know today. Did not become popular until 1890. So
wow. Now that's a nice picture. $10 a bag, you say, huh?
Yeah, that's mine. And you can just send me a check, and I'll get that right out.
My.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you, your family, your whole great audience, happy and healthy times. And I wish it for myself and my family and my friends and everybody out there. We, as a species, we deserve to be happy. And if it turns out that this is the kind of thing, unfortunately, that brings us all together, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I mean, because something has to bring the inhabitants of this planet together, because the visitors from other planets, they ain't doing it for us.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
No, I agree. That's great. Hey, Lee, so good to hear from you. And as always, and your show still goes on Thursday evenings on KGRA radio. Hopefully they'll have the radio station up and going by then.
Well, I feel for you, my brother, my on-air colleague, my brother. I know any kind of little errors, not errors, or just things that don't necessarily go right. Nobody's at fault. It's like we just have to all get through it. And bless you for being on live. And we're all going to get through this, and we're all in this together. And I love being on radio. I love being on your radio show as well as mine.
Yeah.
I
listened to yours.
Thank you for having me on for a few minutes.
I listen to yours almost every week and really enjoy it. It's really, really great, and I highly advise. And a lot of listeners will say something like, "Yeah, I heard that on Lee's show." When they, so a lot of people have kind of migrated over to your show. I just hope they keep coming back to mine. That's all.
Well, I appreciate that, and of course, I hate you that you got Christopher Mellon before I did, but I'm not going to hold that against you.
There's plenty of that. There's plenty of resentment to go around. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do have a great rest of your evening, and I wish you and your whole audience, better times for all of us. Okay.
All right, Lee. Okay. All right. You take care.
Thanks, Martin. Have a good one.
All right. You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. So that line is open now, 603-967-4030. I can only take one call at a time. So once, if you're, the only way you can watch this show is on YouTube. Once you see that number disappear, that means I have someone online. So again, that number is 603-967-4030. I'm ready for your call. There's always a hesitation because, YouTube has, I think it's a 30-second lag, something like that. So, I can be asking for a call and someone's ready to call and I don't hear from them. But here we go. Hey, caller, how are
Hello.
you? First name and where are you calling from?
It's Jason, or Doc, from the UK.
Well, welcome to the show.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate the call.
That's okay. No, I called in. I'm trying to set something straight because this goes back a few years when you were at one of the congresses and you had a so-called expert on who I have not a distaste for, because Stanton Freeman stood up for me, which is amazing. And it goes back to where I actually know someone who's a telemetrist and worked for the military. And they used to fly test sorties over at our own city. And he said they wouldn't do tests over the city. It's ridiculous. There are tests where they couldn't find anything. And I've been told this by somebody who is actually doing this work.
Really?
Yeah. I actually, he's retired. He's retired from it now. He was a telemetrist, and what they were doing was this is back in the early 1980s. All the stuff now is declassified anyway, so it's not something I'm talking about that could get anyone in any trouble. What they did was they were concerned a new form of radar that was being produced could spot the stealth fighters. So they had to test them, and they had a stealth fighter and an ordinary fighter fly alongside each other across over the top of our town, and it was constantly being spotted by people in the reports to the local press, saying we've seen a fighter aircraft with a UFO, and it actually happened. And this same guy who's a telemetrist was one of the guys who was hooked up with the guys on the Nimitz stuff as well, and he actually knows some of the names that have come out.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, it's almost ironic that you were able to get that information, don't you think? Or is that how did that all happen?
He has the same interest in UFOs as I do. We've been friends since we've been 5 years old, and when we were talking about when the Nimitz stuff came out, he said, actually know one of the guys who was on it, and the reason being is that back in the early 90s, the link between the US and the UK was a lot stronger, and they were working on projects quite close together. And he said he knew of it. But this was after the documentary had been released, but he wasn't following what was going on, and I'm saying it's all out in the open. And then he watched it and said, yeah, I know some of this. I know people involved in it, and he explained that the radar at the time could actually track anything the Russians or anyone else could put up. They could track. They were designed to track anything that was in the sky. So he said that's when you know there's something wrong, when they can't track it, because they're designed to track anything at all. So I just thought I wanted to say that. I wanted to get it out because there was I remember standing up for me and saying yes they would, and one of the so-called experts, I don't know who it was, said, oh, that they wouldn't test new aircraft over land. You have to, because you're never going to, you're not going to send it out on a sortie and you've never tested it over a city or a town. It's an absurdity. So, but I also get frustrated with when people say to me, when I've seen things, and they say to me, oh, it could have been this, and saying I'm looking at it through binoculars. Yeah. And it's like it's huge. It's huge in my binoculars. I can see this thing isn't normal. And then a friend and I were out driving in a car on the way to some work, and this bright light came out of the clouds and then dipped away into the clouds again. And then people were saying to me, well, it was a meteorite you saw. I said, well, one that goes out of cloud and then back into cloud. Is that what you're telling me? It gets so frustrating. You know what I mean?
I've heard of so many people trying to debunk something and come up with the funniest, circumstances they think something is. Like, oh, that could have been, a weather balloon that, and it had, all these spectacular movements and, all that, or it must be Venus. It goes back to the swamp gas thing. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, well, I just wanted to get off my chest because, it's like this is first-hand information I've been given. And he couldn't tell me anything that was remotely classified. It's all stuff that's been in the news and stuff like that. So I'm not telling you any secrets or anything. Right. Okay, Martin. Thanks very much.
All right. Hey, thanks so much for the call. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
All
Cheers,
right.
Martin. Good night.
Good night now. All right. So we had just a minute ago, a person was trying to call many times, and now is your turn to call, and I will take your call. And that's 603-967-4030. And by the way, this is a show number only. I get calls constantly during the day. I probably had 3 or 4 today from telemarketers. I'm not sure exactly how that happened, but again, this is only good. I'm going to see if I can call this gentleman back that kept calling me. And
the person you are calling.
Peter and Peggy Shunning.
Whoops. Oh. Okay. So, hey. Hello. I think I know who this is.
What?
Is this Peggy?
Might be.
My goodness, Peggy. So good to hear from you, everyone.
I have turned into such a Luddite. I don't know how to use Skype.
Oh, well, that's fine. I had, it wasn't going to be Skype. I had a call screener lined up, the whole thing. But the whole radio station went down, and they tried to reboot. It couldn't happen. So I'm just taking Skype calls, and it's only one at a time, so it's quite difficult. So I had someone on. I saw you trying to call in, and you know what? You are the winner. You don't even know this.
What do I win?
Do
I win that your sister's
You certainly
drawing?
did. You are the right caller for that. I can't believe it.
Oh, my God. I haven't been lucky for so long. You know that, Martin.
Yes, I do know that. I do have to say, Peggy, and I'm sorry, there's a bunch of people trying to call now. Hang in there, everyone. I will again. I'm sorry it's clunky this way, but I will post the number up when we are ready to take calls.
Okay. What are you telling me? That we're not taking calls? This is not on the air?
No. I'm just not taking calls while you're on the line. See, I can only take one call at a line. I don't have a call screener or anything like that. I can just take one call at a time. So it's all about you. So you won that. I will get that out to you. And I'm so glad you got that. And I do have to tell the listener, Peggy, you have been absolutely wonderful to me. We met online when I first started the show. A year later, I saw 2012. I had started. That's when the first email we had back and forth. I think, if I remember right, Peggy, you kind of told me, why are you doing this or something like that. You're telling me you should do this.
I probably emailed you to tell you how to do it correctly.
That's right. But, when I got your email and I read it, I said, well, she's making a lot of sense here. So I listened to you, and you have been helping out with the Facebook page almost on a daily basis. How many years now?
I know, it's forever.
It's been at least 5 or 6 years. So
well, it's been since the year that we started emailing. So whatever year that was, shortly after we moved to Las Vegas. But yeah, it gets harder and harder as time goes on because there's just not a plethora of new information coming out in my mind.
No, but one of the things you do, which I really appreciate a lot, is you put up a lot of things that have to do with the space discoveries and things like that. It's always interesting. Right. Every time I look at the postings over on Facebook, I thought, wow, that's great. I didn't know this, I didn't know that. And so I encourage anyone. We have everyone. We have like 22,000 or 23,000 people connected to the Facebook page. And it's over at...
well, we'd have a lot more if Facebook hadn't shut us down.
Yeah. What they did, we were getting people by the day, and something happened. They changed things.
And then it just went, okay, you've hit a certain mark. We're not going to let you have any more.
Yeah. I never understood how that... they always try to fix things.
Money, honey.
That's right. They try to encourage us to run ads. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have hit a real the doldrums in my interest in UFOs, and I just wondered, I was wondering about. It was great to hear Lee. I love him.
Yeah.
And he and I are probably around the same age group, and I've gotten to the point where I don't think I'm going to live long enough to get my answers, the answers that I want. All I wanted was a definitive answer before I die. I don't think I'm going to get it. And I wonder how other people feel about that, or do they care?
Wow.
Do you care?
I have said something like that before myself, and I have brought this up on the show a couple of times. You probably didn't hear it, but it is that I watched a show. It's on YouTube, but it's an old UFO documentary back in the 1960s. And there's a guy in it, and he's about in his 70s at the time, and he goes, all I want to do is live long enough to know what these things are. And I thought, oh, my God. And now with
the effing coronavirus, it's like, well, crap.
Yeah, who knows? I have so far. I've had about 3 or 4 people email me and say that it came from aliens, and so I find that take interesting. But Peggy, you are a wonderful person, and I'm just glad you called in. And keep the faith.
I will.
Yeah,
we'll talk soon. We're breaking up. I'll let somebody else go.
All right, Peggy. You take care, and hey,
you too. Hi, everybody out there.
Yeah, and I'll get you this as soon as my sister sends me this artwork. It will be in the mail to you. And again, I
can't wait.
I was so glad that you are the 8th caller The one who gets
Well,
it?
we fixed this all beforehand, Martin.
Oh, yeah,
People
yeah,
are
yeah.
going to know
Well,
that.
you sent me like $20 or something. I can't remember. All right, Peggy,
All right,
you take
talk
care.
soon.
All right, talk
Bye.
soon. All right, the number is open, and that is 603-967-4030. The line is open, and I do appreciate all the callers out there that have been calling in. It's of course I couldn't do this show a 2-hour-ish monologue. So I do really appreciate your participation, and we have of course the radio station is not participating from the listeners over there, and unfortunately, but right now we have the number, the line wide open, 603-967-4030, and basically, here we go. Caller, welcome to the show. Your first name, where are you calling from?
This is Bobby in North Carolina.
Hey, Bobby, how are you?
Good. How are you doing? Do I sound all right?
Yeah, you sound great. You and I go way back. Yeah, wow. So let me just...
I'm in the shop, so if you hear funny sounds...
you're working?
We're going to have to stop doing that. Yeah. So, yeah, we go way back to probably, 6 years now, and one of the things I was going to bring up, which was, kind of funny, is before then I didn't really listen to podcasts. I listened to music. I had like 24 gig of music on my phone. I would just listen to music. And then after I started listening to Open Minds, actually, is where I found out about you, I started to remember sightings and things that I had all my life. It was really odd to me that some of the stuff that was most interesting I just completely forgot about. But I have a couple of stories I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Okay, so one actually way back. So my mom was born in Cuba in a little area called Pinar del Rio, and she was born in 1921. She passed away 2 years ago at the age of 96. And she was probably in her 80s when she told me, because I'd actually, as she got older, I like to sit down and talk to her and ask her about paranormal stuff and things that had happened in her life. And she told me a story about one time when she was out with her brothers, actually, Miguel and Raul and Thomas, and they're on horseback on a dirt road, going through some fields of grass, and they were heading to my father's mom's house at the time. So this would be in the mid-30s. She was a teenager. And they were on horseback, and her brothers were leading her, holding the horses by the reins, and she said all of a sudden the horse started to whinny and kick up, and her brothers had to hold the horse down and keep her from getting thrown. Her and her sister was on the horse. And the path was probably a mile or two long. Back in the 30s, this area was very rural. I mean, pretty much you had a farm for your own food, and then people worked in tobacco fields. It's a huge tobacco producing area. And she said her brother and everybody got real quiet. She didn't understand why, and they traveled the rest of the mile to Mimo's house, and everything was real quiet. When they got there, her brother's like, "Did you see that?" And she asked him, What did I miss? And he said that something came across the field from the right and was mashing the weeds and the grass down, and went across the road, and then went parallel to them on the left, and followed them almost all the way back to the house in the grass. And they can tell because it was mashing the grass now, but they never saw anything. But whatever it was freaked the horses out. And I always thought that was bizarre, but a real interesting story. But I asked her, was it round? Was it?
Oh, so they saw the grass being mashed down, but they couldn't see like an animal or something doing it?
No, it was a large area. They couldn't see nothing, and they couldn't hear nothing or smell nothing. Huh. But it was a large area of grass that was being depressed. As they went with the horse, it was being depressed alongside them in the grass.
Wow.
Along the road.
That's pretty bizarre.
Yeah, that's neat. So I thought that was real interesting. But
yeah.
Another one that I had, actually I was trying to tell you when we were at the conference in North Carolina, but you're like really busy trying to get a hold of Randall Nickerson at the time. I don't know why. But
that's right.
This actually happened to me. I was with my wife and a friend, Rick, and I know exactly where I was. I was standing by the road in Kendall at our house where we used to live. And we're just standing by the road talking, the three of us. And I just happened to look straight up. And the day was overcast, but it was a high overcast. But it was daylight. It wasn't nighttime. And I literally saw a chevron shape of like 8 or 10 lights. And the lights were large. but I didn't see an object. They're in a chevron shape, and they're going directly from east to west. And then a few seconds later, there was another one that I thought might have been higher because the lights were a little bit dimmer. And when I say this thing was big, if you held out a newspaper, it would not cover it. That's how big these lights were.
Wow.
And I know that I got the dates nailed down because the Homestead Air Force Base was pretty much shut down in 1992 due to Hurricane Andrew. So I know it was after 1992, and I moved up here to North Carolina at the end of 95. So I'm thinking it was either 95 or 94. The reason I say this is I actually ran in the house, and a landline called Homestead Air Force Base, and I said, hey, do you guys have any planes flying around? And I was surprised they actually answered the phone. I actually got to talk to the tower. And they said, no. The guy says to me, oh, it's probably a refueling aircraft out there with a bunch of small jets around it refueling. And I said, oh, okay. And I hung up because I grew up near to Miami International Airport. I mean, I literally grew up in the flight path. Planes would, like, literally fly over my house when I was a kid. And there's no way this was a tanker. For it to be that low, I would have heard it. It would have sounded like a roar.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. So this thing was high. It's probably 30,000 feet or something. And it was two sets of chevrons. And I don't know if it was one object, because I never saw an object, or if it's just a group of lights in the shape of a chevron. You know, that's things I don't know. No noise, no sound, and they're moving relatively quick. And years later, I remembered that, and it's like the same thing they saw in Phoenix, with Phoenix lights. But this was in Miami in 1994, 1995.
Wow. So, and that was 1997, right?
The Phoenix lights, I believe, was 97.
Yeah.
Yeah.
March 13th.
And I believe I actually reported that to the National UFO Reporting Center. I tried looking for it the other day, but it's really hard to index this stuff. So there's so many reports if you go by state. But I'm pretty sure I did report it years later, because in 1995 there was nowhere to report stuff that I knew of. So,
wow.
Anyways, that's my two stories.
Well, Bobby, hey, I really do appreciate the call. As always, it's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah, I enjoyed what Garrett said about you. He said some nice things about you, and they're all absolutely true. You're a great person. You have a great show, and you have great integrity. And stay safe. Don't go anywhere. Stay home. Buy tortillas if you run out of toilet paper.
Same to you, Bobby. You take care. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, have a good night. Yeah. All right, everyone. So that line is open. I think we're going to be able to take one more call, and that's it. So if you want to call in, that number is 603-967-4030. One more call for the night. Again, 603-967-4030. We just had someone trying to call. So do indeed give a ring back. I will stay here without a caller for just a little while. And if that doesn't happen, we'll call it a night. But I do want to say to everyone out there that I really have enjoyed this evening. We made it happen. Someone wrote me, I don't know, I would say 3 or 4 months ago, and they said, caller, hang on just 1 second. Thank you for calling. Now we have two. That's the way it always goes. So someone wrote me that they like the technical issues that we have here because the show is so real. And yeah, unfortunately, we do have some real technical issues that happen that are, I have to say out of my control for the most part. I'm not like I'm trying to dodge responsibility, but definitely today I did check in early. I started checking in yesterday actually to make sure everything was going to be okay at the radio station, and I was assured everything was okay, and it just didn't happen. It's just one of those things. So, caller, welcome to the show. Your first name, where are you calling from?
Hi, is that me?
That is you.
Oh, hi, Chris from Texas, Houston, Texas.
Oh, hi, Chris. Welcome to the show.
It's my first time calling. I have sent something once before in the comments below a YouTube video, but not when the show was live. I usually don't remember to turn it on. So I'm glad this is a nice thing. Wasn't expecting it. I don't know if I'm going to have time. I do have a personal sighting, but I also wanted to say something that keeps occurring to me about the Tic Tacs.
Oh yeah,
and
sure.
The Nimitz incident, and that that most of the conversation seems to be a lot of the conversation seems to be about the impossible propulsion and the impossible G-forces.
Yes.
And the speed, the maneuvering characteristics. And given that, and this is something I've never heard anybody say, given that, you had a guest on, I think, last week, it's like thousands of G-forces, and what could live in that and survive. It seems like we should be considering that there might not be anything alive in it, that it might be an instrument.
Yes.
Like a drone, but a very advanced drone that we would not have here.
Yeah.
Or that it's remotely piloted drone, so that there's somebody at the other end having the experience in a virtual cockpit and not having to endure any of the G-forces. Of course, then that would, assume that that person would have to be relatively nearby. And maybe that would be coming from one of those things that are seen under the ocean, under the surface of the water.
Mm-hmm.
But I think given the what's observed and what we know is possible, either you have to assume that there's some sort of intelligent life force that can absorb and survive thousands of G-forces, or there's some sort of machine, artificial field operating that negates all of the G-forces within the space of the vehicle, which maybe. But the other simpler Occam's razor thing would be that it's a drone, that they're drones, and possibly even a distortion of the space itself, and not really even an object. But I know that they're getting readings showing that there's a solid object there.
Mm-hmm.
So that would argue for there being an actual object. But I think it's at least possible that the readings are being fooled by some technology to detect an object when it's not there, intentionally or unintentionally. That it might just be a location in space, in the airspace, that has these characteristics about it, has reflectivity, has redo reflectivity, infrared reflectivity, but it doesn't have an object inside the envelope.
Wow.
I just wonder why nobody talks about that, because those things seem logical.
I will tell you, I can tell right now that you've given this a great deal of thought, first of all, and that really makes that can certainly make sense. I did remember someone saying that possibly these could have been drones from that came from a mothership and was controlled by them. There's all kinds of speculation. I do have P.J. Hughes that was involved in the Nimitz case. He's going to be on sometime in April, and he wants to talk about the fact that he thinks that it was he's more leaning toward this. It's a technology type of situation, and what exactly he's going to say, I have no idea. I'm looking forward to talking to him about it. Maybe perhaps you can.
I wouldn't share the. Yeah, I'd love to. Hopefully, I'll remember to turn it on when it's live. But I always listen after the fact. I always have, but I usually don't. I'm not here at 5 o'clock.
Well, that would be if you can think to call. If you want to write this down, he is going to be on April 14th. And April 14th.
Well, I always check your schedule, so
yeah.
I'll know.
And by the way, for the listener out there, anyone can go to podcastufo.com, and on the sidebar, there's a place you can put your email address, and I will send out a weekly newsletter to you. It's only once a week it comes out, and it just basically says who the guest is, and it also has the weekly blog link on there as well. So it's not like
I'll certainly do that.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's the 14th of April, and guess what? That's our 400th show on Podcast
Well, congratulations in advance on that.
Yeah.
So now, do you have time for the personal sighting?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'll try one more call after you, but for right now, let's hear it. Sure.
Well, this happened in January of last year at about 10 o'clock at night. It was actually happened to be the night of the blood moon, of there was a lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse by the Earth, and now, of course, this object was not the moon because the moon was in the sky at the same time. So, but I also don't have photographs because I fumbled with my phone, and whether it was from excitement or something more mysterious, I couldn't make the phone work. So the camera worked. So I don't have any evidence, but I did see it. I reported to MUFON, and they called me and did a follow-up, and I haven't heard anything back from them. I'm in the middle of a big city. I was then, Houston, and it was like a Saturday night. It was the night of the eclipse. I lived in an area where there are bars and restaurants, so there's a lot of lights on the ground. And I actually went outside to look up at and photograph if I could. And my bad, poor quality camera couldn't photograph the moon, but I was looking up, and I was looking straight up at the moment I saw this thing, and the reason was that because of the moon, the eclipse, it was creating a sort of a sunset on the moon cast by the Earth, or sunrise, sunset. So it was changing the color temperature of the color, or the wavelength of the light. So there was a red cast over the entire sky, and so it was like a blue blocker sunglasses. It was minimizing the clouds and making them transparent. They were only wispy high clouds anyway. So I was looking up because there were so many clouds in the sky. And in Houston, there's so much light pollution, you rarely see a sky full of stars. And so this was stars. I said no, it's just clouds. So there were a zillion stars in the sky. Very rare, and I was looking straight up in front of my apartment house, and as I looked up straight up, this disc came over my apartment house, moving straight north, and continued straight north, steady, and then took a slight turn and went all the way over the horizon. And fortunately, there's an empty lot that was across from where I lived then, and so there wasn't a building in the way I could follow it for quite a ways, even though I couldn't get my camera to work. This was a disc, I would say, hand out a 50-cent piece, old-fashioned 50-cent piece, the size of. And so hard to tell. It didn't have no lights, no propulsion, no sound. It might have made a sound. I was in the city. There was lots of noise, so it possibly nothing I could distinguish as a sound. But no lights. The only reason I saw it was dark. It was like a dark rust red color, and I only saw it because it blocked the stars out, and it was slightly lighter than the deep black of the sky.
Wow!
And it moved north, and that's the second time I've seen an object like that. The first time, your previous caller was talking about in 1994 or 95 a chevron of lights. I saw a chevron in broad daylight that I think was 5 of the same things that I saw at night. But these were at midday. There was a tropical storm and there were low clouds. It was flying. This chevron was flying at the base, the very bottom of the clouds, and it was sort of camouflaged by being the same color. But I could still make it out. And again, the reason I was outside looking up, a little more complicated, but simple answer is because of the storm. So that's the second time. I think this was a single. It was hard to tell the size in both instances, but I would roughly say it was about the size of an airplane, a passenger airplane, a 727 something. Possibly it was high enough to be. I couldn't really tell. It may have been 200 feet. It may have been 1,000 feet. It may have been 5,000 feet.
That's right.
And
that's always so hard
size
to.
Would have been especially with no lights on it.
Yeah.
And it was blocking out the highest cloud.
Wow.
But they're pretty high clouds, so that doesn't mean anything. And I noticed there seemed to be some sort of change in the coloration of the dark rust-colored. Certainly, it was a perfect circle, geometric circle, absolutely perfect.
Wow.
And I finally realized that it was reflecting the ground clutter, which was being illuminated in a red light by the moon. So it was picking up. So that would make sense that it was either some sort of a dull metal or a shiny metal or a brushed metal or something.
Yeah, amazing.
So, and that's what the ones that I saw in daylight were. They look like very finely spun hubcaps. They were just but very fine silvery colored discs.
Yeah.
So that could be the same material that I was seeing at night. And so one of the things that I found out from when I did that, they sent me a membership thing, and I joined MUFON, and I get their newsletter, and it shows all the different sightings for every month around the world, and sort of a total. And of course, most of them in the United States, and most of them over big cities. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm getting a call. I'm going to ignore it. So what I learned was that most of the sightings that MUFON gets reports on are either discs or spheres or saucers, which to me all could be the same thing, depending on how you see it and where you are in relation to it.
Yeah, triangles are in there.
By far, that's the largest category.
Yeah, I know the lights in the sky, I heard, are number one, but you know... not in MUFON. No. Not in MUFON. How about that? No. What about triangles? There's a
it's down there. The discs are now this is just people who report to MUFON.
Yeah, well, that's what I saw, and what I saw had no lights either, but there was like a bluish glow over the whole thing, which was again another strange thing. But there's so many of them that do have lights. I really don't know. There probably is that the disc-shaped saucers or whatever you want to call them that people are seeing, a lot of them have lights on them, I guess. I don't know. It seems like you always hear, like, sure, triangles have lights and maybe the chevron-shaped ones or the, but I don't know about the saucer-shaped ones.
I've seen things that had lights. I've seen other sightings when that were illuminated.
Yeah,
but not this one, and the other ones are so far they're back in my childhood, and it's like, well, what was really happening? But this one was also last year, and I had already had that other sighting in 1991 of the chevrons in daylight. So this wasn't new, it wasn't a brand new experience. So I was trying to be as observant as I could. It was tough not to be able to get the distance, the size, to get an idea of the size or distance because of the way it was. And I don't know of anybody else who saw it. I thought I would just yell, but I was standing out in front of my apartment house, but there was nobody else home. And there were people at the bar a block away, but they would never have heard me. So I was just, left to watch it myself right in the middle of a big city with people all around.
Yeah, that's right. And it's always hard to judge when you don't really know the height of it, the size of it. You can't have the triangulation. So, hey, I really appreciate the call. It was great speaking with you tonight.
Thank you so much. I'll try again.
All right, everyone. So that's, we'll take one more call. So I know someone was trying to give a ring here, and that's 967-4030. One more call if you're up for it. And next week, I will chat just quickly. Next week, we have, I don't know exactly how to pronounce her name. It's Zelia Edgar. She will be on next week, and I believe the following week after that, we have Leslie Kane will be on, I believe. Let me check the schedule, and I can go over that. So just letting everyone know, we will take one more caller if you are up for calling. And yes, so Leslie is after that on the 31st of March. And then we have Ray Sisman. He'll be on the 7th of April. And PJ Hughes on the 14th. And Cinco de Mayo, we're going to be doing that live May 5th with Mac Maloney down in Exeter, New Hampshire at the radio station. But it doesn't look like we're getting any calls. So we can call. Oops. I spoke too soon. Caller, welcome to the show. You are
Hi,
the
Martin.
last caller. I don't know if that makes a difference to you, but you're the last caller.
No problem at all.
How are you? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
It's Steve from Michigan.
Hi, Steve.
I called in a couple of weeks ago, the last time you had your show, about 4 or 5 weeks ago when everything failed and you called in for listeners.
Oh, you have a great knack at doing that. When everything fails. Oh, that was actually
I
what
mentioned
that gave, that gave birth to this show. I thought we'd try it again, and I really, really tried to make sure this went right. I kept offering, let's do a test. But you know what? I'm not scared to try it again. And so in another month or two, I will give it another go. Why not? But anyway, I do appreciate the call. Steve, you have a sighting or something you want to tell us about?
No, actually, when I was talking to you last time, it was about the fact you mentioned that why would they hide the secrecy of the Tic Tac? What was top secret? And I mentioned the fact that maybe it wasn't so much the Tic Tac, but the thing that they actually used to video it, or if you remember, about a month ago. But one of the reasons that I called in, I was a good friend of a guy called Gordon Crichton in the UK, who was the editor of Flying Saucer Review for many years, which was probably the preeminent at that time magazine for flying saucers. Gordon Crichton, I don't know whether you remember him, but he's in some of the movies and films that you see from James Fox and everybody else, Stephen Greer.
Oh, okay.
He was a member of the Foreign Service in the UK, and probably, although he never said this, was a member of MI6. But the reason that I was calling in was I lived in Hong Kong for many years, and during that time, whenever I used to come home in the summer for my annual holiday, I'd always drop by Gordon's house, which was just outside London Heathrow, and I'd spend the first day with him and his wife. And his house was full of original documents that he received from all over the world, including things like, if you remember, the Russian landing in, I've forgotten what the name was, but where a robot or something landed
11 foot
in a park in Russia.
Right. I know exactly the case you're talking about.
Right. So, and I saw the original documentation in Gordon's house for that. But one of the reasons that I called in tonight was that during one of those visits, when I used to come back from Hong Kong, Gordon told me one time he was actually based in China in the 1930s. So this is the interesting thing, I think. And in 1933, when he was in Nanking, and I can't remember whether it was General Chiang Kai-shek that he was with, but he was with one of the senior government officials, and he was sitting out on one of the hillsides around Nanking, and as he described to me, a flying disc just simply tootled past them as they were having, like a picnic or a meal on the side of the hillside. But that was 1933.
Wow. Isn't that amazing? Not exactly the modern UFO era, as they say.
Not exactly that. But, what he said was it was a classic flying disc. It was about 30 to 45 feet in diameter. And it just literally wasn't speeding past. It just literally flew past wherever they were on the side of the hillside in Nanking. But that was 1933.
Isn't that amazing? I just pulled up the image of Gordon Crichton, and I have seen, he does look very familiar, so I have seen him in a documentary or something,
yeah, well,
sure.
He was the editor, one of the original editors of Flying Saucer Review in the UK, and he was a brilliant guy because he spoke about 7 languages fluently, which is why that Russian story that I told you about a few minutes ago, he had the original description in Russian with all the diagrams. And these things were just dotted up his stairs, and he had books and files everywhere. And for about 20 years, I used to visit him once a year in July when I flew home from Hong Kong. And I'd spend the first day with him. As soon as I landed in Heathrow, the first place I'd go to was his house. And we'd spend the rest of the day with him, and he'd show me videos and all kinds of stuff. But I thought you might be interested in that situation regarding 1933.
Yeah, that is totally amazing. What a great story. I love it. Well, I really do
Thanks for
appreciate
letting
the
me
call.
be your last person tonight. I hope
Yes.
I'm not the last person to call ever.
I sure hope not.
Although the way the coronavirus is going,
Yeah.
we may not be too.
I know. We'll see what
Too
happens
sure.
with that. Yeah. But you stay safe.
Anyway,
and,
you've got a great show, and thank you for taking my call. I
bet.
listen to you every Tuesday night, so it's fantastic.
Excellent. I really appreciate it. You take care.
Thanks a lot. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right. Good night. All right, everyone. So that will do it for the night. I really appreciate everyone participating. I'm sorry we didn't have the call screening lined up and all that. We'll be back next week with Zelia Edgar. Should be an interesting show. I've heard a number of good things about her. And do remember to try to stay safe. Just be mindful of everything you do. And we want you around. I want all my listeners to be around. So, and try not to panic if you can. We'll all get through this together. We always seem to. One thing Lee just said, earlier on was, maybe this will make us a better human race. Hope it doesn't take something like this only to make that happen. But I just want everyone to stay safe and come back next week. And, of course, keep your eyes to the sky.